Today, we are very pleased to invite Mr. Antony Beckmand to join us. Mr. Beckmand is the CEO of Kuniko Limited. He has over 25 years experience in financial and executive roles within the mining industry. Good morning, Antony. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Could you please tell us what are Kuniko's current exploration projects and why are they attractive from an investment standpoint?
Sure, Hannah. So Kuniko has a portfolio of battery metals projects, including copper, nickel, cobalt, and lithium. So in Norway, we have the Skutterud cobalt project, which was once a while back the world's largest cobalt mine. And we've recently been drilling there, and we've had multiple cobalt intercepts, including recently the discovery of a new shallow high-grade zone of mineralization. And next to that, we have the Ringerike battery metals project, which is 360 square kilometers of exploration area, but it has a corridor of historic brownfield nickel copper workings on that. And our focus on that project is the Italian nickel project, which has a previous resource estimate. In central Norway, we have 3 copper projects, which are a mix of brownfield and greenfield projects. But that region is prolific for tier 1, tier 2 copper mines. And in Canada, we've picked up 3 prospective lithium projects, which are greenfield in the James Bay region, which is well regarded for lithium-bearing pegmatites. And, these projects are attractive for investors, firstly, because we're targeting critical battery metals, which are, in increasing demand due to the EV shift and the green transition. Secondly, our projects are located in areas which have a rich mineral and mining history, but have had little or no modern exploration. So there's significant upside there, Hannah. And lastly, it's the proximity to the European and North American battery and EV markets, which is giving a strategic advantage, particularly in Europe, for investors wanting exposure to those growth fundamentals.
Thank you. How does Kuniko Limited stand out from other junior exploration companies on the ASX?
Yeah, that's a good question. Firstly, I think it's our portfolio of multiple battery metals commodities. So we're offering diversification, but also capturing opportunities across the sector. And probably the most important is our strategy is aligned with the development of supply chains in the growing European EV market space, which is also underpinned by EU regulations for energy transition and sourcing of local suppliers of battery raw materials. And while we're listed on the ASX, our management team is based here in Norway. So we're very close to our projects, the industry players, government regulators, and local stakeholders. And we've been able to establish a local exploration team that are dedicated to our projects here in Norway, ensuring that we have the expertise and progressing those projects all the time. And I think lastly, it's just our commitment to ESG practices, which for a junior exploration company, recently we achieved a carbon neutral certification for exploration. I don't think that's really something that's been done before. So these factors and, our focus on battery metals and strategic position towards Europe, I think put us in sort of a leading category for junior explorers.
As you just mentioned ESG, how does Kuniko Limited ensure compliance with environmental and regulatory standards in its exploration activities?
Yeah, that's a top priority for us, and clearly something we want to differentiate ourselves from towards other explorers. So in Norway, where we're locally present, the management has the experience of working within the regulatory framework here. And we maintain close relationships with industry bodies and local stakeholders. When it comes to our exploration, we're actively engaging with the local communities that we're impacting, informing them of what we're doing in advance of doing it and addressing any concerns that they might have. But to further strengthen our commitment, we also enlist expert advisors who have helped us actually develop a roadmap of ESG-related tasks and activities that are also matching our current stage of development. Lastly, we're monitoring and recording all our emissions from our exploration activities. And once a year, we get these independently audited, so there's full transparency. And, going forward with our operations or projects being located in Norway and Canada, 95% of electricity comes from renewable hydropower. So we're well positioned for carbon neutral or low emission operations in future.
Kuniko has several projects going on at the same time. So how does Kuniko Limited prioritize and manage its exploration budget?
Yeah, that's true. We've got several promising projects here. So effectively managing the exploration budget is obviously a top priority, and we need to have a systematic approach. So we consider things like the project potential, the exploration stage and risk of the projects, the financial resources and access to capital that we have, as well as balance in the portfolio across the commodity range and our strategic growth priorities. So obviously, the projects that are more advanced, like Italian and Skutterud on the cobalt, these tend to get higher allocations for budgets, where the earlier stage projects, which require a lot more exploration effort to determine prospectivity, we want to keep them moving forward to maintain that portfolio diversification, but they have a lower priority in the allocation. So by considering all these factors, we're trying to make sure we're prioritizing the potential for exploration success, while also being prudent with the financial position of the company.
Thank you. What recent developments related to exploration projects has Kuniko Limited achieved, and when does the company expect production to begin?
It's always the most common question, but we've had great developments with our projects over the recent months, particularly this year. We started the year with 3 drilling campaigns across our copper, nickel and cobalt projects in Norway. The Skutterud cobalt project has delivered some exciting results with the discovery of that high-grade shallow zone of mineralization, which is really showcasing the potential of the Skutterud license for a significant mineral deposit. And similarly, Italian that has a previous resource estimate on that. We've started drilling there in January, finished in March, and our drill holes all intercepted very noteworthy grades of nickel, copper and cobalt. So there's a multi-element deposit there that we're keen to advance. And James Bay, the 3 projects there, prolific lithium area, we've just recently commenced exploration work there in the last couple of weeks. So these recent developments really highlight the way we're trying to progress the projects and unlock the value for shareholders. But we are still exploration stage, so production is several years away. And we need to keep the focus on developing our projects towards those maiden resource estimates, after which we can then move towards pre-feasibility studies. So in our portfolio, Italian nickel project is the most advanced with the previous estimate on there. But those recent results from Skutterud cobalt project are really pushing that priority to develop that project because it's quite interesting and large potential for a high value commodity. But, really we need to build that strong foundation first before shifting the focus towards production.
Thank you. What are some key trends and drivers that Kuniko Limited is monitoring in the EV market in Europe? And do you anticipate supply and demand imbalances for battery metals?
Yeah, that's it's obviously something we try and keep a close eye on and monitor. There's several key trends, but maybe some of the top ones for us would be government policies and regulations. They play a significant role in the adoption of electric vehicles and the requirements around those. So we're seeing stronger emission standards coming out of the EU and regulations around those, which are very supportive towards the increasing demand for electric vehicles. And I think secondly, what we all captures our interest is the investment and strategies of the major automakers in Europe. So we see many of the big automakers moving upstream and making investments to secure their future supplies of battery metals, creating really a strong competition locally and growth potential. And I guess lastly, it's just advancements in technology. It's happening rapidly in the battery space, and that impacts consumer preferences and the market dynamics overall. So we need to monitor those. But the supply and demand imbalance is, there's obviously a growing demand for EVs, across the world, and that poses challenges in meeting the increasing demand for battery metals, which is really putting pressure on the global supply chains. So what we're seeing is, the strong interest coming from EV manufacturers looking to secure their futures and their future businesses. And then governments, there's increasing statements which are very supportive towards securing the local supply chains and the development of local sources of battery metals. So really promoting exploration and mining activities. And Norway has been very outspoken in this regard, seeing itself as really an engine room to drive the green shift for Europe. So keen to see how things develop over time there. So it's, for me personally, I think there's a unique set of fundamentals at play here, where demand for battery metals or metals in general is more significant than we've seen in the rest of human history. And it's really, the world is looking to junior explorers like Kuniko to make major discoveries to meet its transition goals to a low emission society.
Thank you so much for your sharing. From your perspective, what factors have contributed to the significant price surge of Vulcan Energy, as Vulcan Energy is a major shareholder in Kuniko Limited? And what are your expectations for Kuniko's trajectory over the next 5 years?
Yes, Vulcan is a major shareholder in Kuniko, and I think its success can be attributed to several factors. I guess firstly, Vulcan has benefited from the strong market demand fundamentals for lithium, really driven by the green energy transition and the growth in consumer demand for electric vehicles. Their German-based project focuses on carbon neutral lithium production, and their position really on the doorstep of the European EV industry. And that's led to strategic partnerships with companies like Stellantis. So for Kuniko, our trajectory is really driven by a similar set of fundamentals. But while Vulcan specialises in lithium, Kuniko has the diversified portfolio of copper, nickel, cobalt and lithium, which is really allowing us to capitalise on the growing demand across the battery metal sector. So as we continue to grow our projects and develop those, what we're anticipating is we'll attract the attention of those EV manufacturers who are looking for local sources of battery metals. And our strategic alignment with Europe and the EV market, our commitment towards ESG is really giving us a competitive advantage in the space. So ultimately, we hope to follow in Vulcan's footsteps, building strong partnerships, delivering exploration success. But over the next 5 years, it's really develop our projects, get the resource estimates and eventually progress towards production and through those efforts, really maintain a grip on the growing demand fundamentals for battery metals and deliver value for our shareholders.
Thank you. This is the end of the interview. We look forward to hearing more news from Kuniko in the future. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.